Good evening and welcome to the Paranormal Lens podcast. I'm your host tonight, Jott-Nyx, and I'm here with Jamie Widener and Kirstin Truccano. Hey guys, it's been a couple weeks, and we're in season 4 now. When did that happen?
Just now.
Just now. That's
right now.
There we go.
We're all in it together.
So, what have you guys been up to? Anything fun?
Jamie?
No. I took a week off. Just did stuff here at my house. Worked on some projects, laid low, started planning next week's episode. It just was kind of like the break we needed, right?
Uh-huh.
So,
Kirstin?
Yeah,
it was kind of refreshing. I will say last week on Tuesday, I was like verbally going out of like, all right, I got to do this before the podcast, this before the podcast, this before the podcast. And then I stopped and went, oh, there's no podcast tonight. And God bless my husband. He looked and he went, what? And I'm like, yeah, no, we're taking a week off. And he's like, oh, like he's kind of sounded disappointed for a little bit. But no, it was a nice, like, it was a nice little break. Got me kind of, like you were, Jamie, doing some research and everything on a few of the topics that I'm going to cover coming up.
Good.
Got to go dress up and do things, make sure everything's going to fit properly for the Ren Fair. So whenever those photos get posted by the fair, I can post the photos then.
nice. Something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Are there dates yet for the fair?
I want to say it's either I want to say it's the third weekend in August is the first day.
Okay.
very
About a
cool.
month. Right. Worth waiting for.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Good. Well, I spent the week not resting and relaxing. I volunteered at this summer camp that I do every year, Camp Park. Great organization. Lots of good people doing a lot of good things for people. So our special needs campers loved the week. So it's always good to make them happy, and that's what we're there for, is making the campers happy. So, and that's where I spent my 4th of July. So,
Yeah.
so up in the woods in the mountains of central Pennsylvania. So good.
I did get a chance to visit. I had to
You
drop
did?
off a kid, so I finally understand after all these years, this place, and what struck me was the remoteness, but yet not being so far away. Like how mid-state Pennsylvania, you can be somewhere in the middle of nowhere really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And the state park that the camp is at was just exactly that. So not too far away, a couple hour drive from here, of course, but not too far from civilization, but yet enough. So
Right.
very cool.
And
You got to see in action. You were in the kitchen,
I was
bustling. So
I was busy. We didn't have time to talk really. I was getting people.
you waved.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
On your way in and out both times, because I know you made a trip in and a trip out. And
Yeah, I had to go find the thing that was forgotten, and we're in Somerset. So sure, yeah.
But did you notice it was an old civilian conservation corps camp?
Okay, that
And
makes sense.
did you notice the small cemetery that you passed on the way in?
I did.
So
Yes.
I think it's one of those, and I'm going to actually talk a little bit about that on the episode tonight. Not that one, but ones like that. It's these small, almost family plots that were located where people were. You didn't have the opportunity to take people back to their home or wherever, a church. It was, you buried them where you were. So
To that point, when we were looking for our house, we found a property in the sort of southernish end of Lancaster County, anyway, that had a barn and a house and everything. But then at the back end of the property was about 8 gravestones for the family that lived there, who built the property and the original owners. And that was the reason we didn't buy the house. Because Steph said no.
right.
But like you're to that point. You're exactly right. There weren't always permanent random cemetery
Right.
funeral plots that we all see now. There were sometimes you just were right there on your in your homestead because
Uh-huh.
that's what it was, and there wasn't anywhere else to go.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, some of those are now so dilapidated. The tombstones are faded over. Some got knocked down. Then, but if you look, you might find them,
Right.
especially if you have an old property, with land. You never know.
Yep. So yeah, that's really cool. Those things.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's dig into tonight's episode. How's that
Before
sound?
we go, let's say hello to some folks. We got Bert said, "Welcome back. We missed you." Stefan has joined us, and he says, "Sounds right" to our earlier context. And Heather, let us have it. Bert and I had to find something else to do last Tuesday night.
So
We were lost
sorry.
without you all. I doubt that you were lost. I'm sure there was plenty of other things going on, but that's very kind. Missed you guys too.
So,
Thanks for joining.
so
All
yeah,
right, we're there. Go ahead.
cool. All right. Well, as we had advertised for the last couple of weeks, I am talking tonight about Landoll's Mohican Castle. Now, I'm not sure about you, but when I heard Landoll's Mohican Castle, I imagined an old structure built long ago, and I assumed that with the Mohican name, it would be looking at something in the Hudson River Valley of New York, because that's where the Mohicans, the tribe, originated. But I was wrong on both accounts. So there's a surprise there. So let's dig in. Many of the locations we've discussed in the podcast are abandoned asylums or centuries old prisons or decaying plantations, things with hundreds of years of life, be it happy or not, having lived and experienced things in the walls. Tonight we tell a little bit of a different story. Landoll's Mohican Castle is smack dab in the middle of Ohio, just outside of Loudonville, Ohio, in Ashland County. I'm trying to get the slides up here. That's why I'm lost a little bit. There we go. It sits in an area of rolling hills, dense hardwood forests, sandstone cliffs cut by wandering streams, and that's my dog in the background making noise. I apologize.
Oh, we can see her. Hey, Maggie.
Listen, she's having the best time right now.
Of course.
The cliffs are cut by wandering streams almost exactly in the middle between Akron and Columbus. It may be between two major cities, but the area feels isolated even today. Long before roads, hotels, or tourists, these forests were home to the Native American people, including the Delaware, the Lenape, the Wyandot, and the Shawnee, and the tribe that ultimately gave the region its name, the Mohicans, also known as the Mohican people. They were forced out and pushed through this area. Although James Fenimore Cooper's novel, The Last of the Mohican, popularized the name, the historical Mohican people were an Algonquin-speaking nation originally from the Hudson River Valley in present-day New York and western New England. As European settlement expanded, many Mohican were displaced westward. The Mohican name remained attached to this region, even though the population and tribal territories shifted over time through migration, treaties, and unfortunately forced removal. For Native people, this landscape wasn't simply wilderness, it was home. The forests and rivers supplied food, the hills offered protection, and many Native traditions viewed certain natural places as spiritually significant. Today, there's no documented evidence that the specific castle property served as a ceremonial site or burial ground for the Native Americans. While stories to that effect circulate online and in paranormal circles, historians have not verified those claims. And I found a lot of that with this actual investigation. By the late 1700s and the early 1800s, waves of European American settlers began moving into what would become north central Ohio. Life here wasn't easy. Families cleared dense forests by hand. The homes were built from logs harvested nearby. It could take days to travel between settlements. If doctors, medicine, or other supplies were needed, a multi-day round trip was in order. Disease, accidents, harsh winters, and limited
Chad?
Yep.
You really went far away on your audio there a moment
Yeah.
ago.
What did you lose?
You should probably just start over.
I'm not starting over.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I'd go back like
How about
10
3 or 4
seconds.
sentences.
How about
Yeah.
disease, accidents, harsh winters?
Sure.
Yes.
All right.
Perfect.
And we're live. You can tell that.
Yeah.
Disease.
Oh, wait, hold on. Stefan confirms.
Okay.
We lost you.
All right. Well, I'm back.
back to the light.
Disease, accidents, harsh winters, and limited medical care meant that death was a common part of frontier life. When a family member died, they were often buried close to home because there were no established public cemeteries nearby. Small family burial grounds became common across Ohio. One of those burial grounds would eventually become known as Hyde Cemetery. To appreciate why cemeteries like Hyde matter, it's worth imagining daily life for those early settlers. Childhood illness that was easily treated today could prove fatal. A simple infection could be life-threatening, and farming accidents were common. Outbreaks of disease such as cholera and influenza periodically swept through rural communities, all because medical care was limited or non-existent. Sometimes the treatment was as bad as the illness. For many families, losing loved ones at a young age was tragic but familiar reality. As a result, pioneer cemeteries often contain graves of young children, young parents, and multiple generations of the same family. Walking through a place like Hyde Cemetery isn't just a glimpse into death, it's a reminder of how fragile life could be on the American frontier. Now, historical records indicate that members of the Hyde family were among the earliest settlers in this part of Ashland County during the 19th century. Like many pioneer families, they farmed the land and helped establish the local community. A log cabin associated with the Hyde family once stood on or near what is now the castle property. While the original structure no longer survives, its location is remembered in local history and contributes to the property's frontier heritage. Family members were buried nearby in a modest cemetery overlooking the surrounding countryside. Unlike the large Victorian cemeteries with elaborate monuments, Hyde Cemetery remained small and practical. It was a quiet resting place for people whose lives were shaped by the hardships of the frontier Ohio. A family plot with simple headstones to mark the lives of the family who settled the land. Today, the cemetery still exists on the property and is carefully maintained. It serves as both a historic landmark and one of the focal points of the castle's haunted history tours. When you have an old cemetery, you would think you would have old ghost stories. But again, that is not the case. This quiet pioneer cemetery only gained a reputation for being haunted after the castle was built. Oh, and I guess I haven't mentioned when that was yet, have I? Construction was completed in 2002.
Huh.
That's right, only 24 years ago. I guess my next question would be, who and why would build a castle in the early 2000s? Well, the who was James Landoll, better known as Jim. He was not exiled royalty. He was an entrepreneur, publisher, veteran, and a dreamer. While serving in the army during the 1960s, he was stationed in Europe. Like countless American servicemen before him, he had the opportunity to travel and experience places that many only see in books and movies. One experience stood above the rest, the castles. He fell in love with the massive stone fortresses, the ancient towers. He enjoyed exploring the hidden staircases and imagining what had happened in the great halls. These structures had survived wars, centuries of weather, changing governments, and countless generations, and they called to him. For many people, visiting a European castle becomes a fond vacation memory. For Jim Landoll, it became a lifelong obsession. According to the Landoll family, Jim promised himself that one day he would build his own castle back home in Ohio. At the time, it sounded impossible, but sometimes impossible dreams simply take a little bit longer. When Jim returned home, he didn't rush to the local lumber yard and start building a castle. Instead, he built a business. In 1970, he founded Landoll Publishing Company. The company specialized in children's educational books and quickly expanded into one of the country's largest publishers of educational material. They had licensed children activity and coloring books featuring franchises like Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, and Peanuts. And as I was going through, and there's a picture here, I remember some of these books from the 70s. At its height, Landoll Publishing reportedly employed over 1,000 people and generated approximately $100 million in annual sales. For decades, Jim focused on growing the company, but in the back of his mind, he carried the dream of building his castle. When the publishing company was sold to Tribune Publishing in 1997 for $80 million, he finally had both the time and the resources to pursue that dream. Now, some retirees moved to Florida and buy a beach house, but Jim decided to stay in Ohio and build a castle. And it's all about location, location, location. Jim and his wife Marta set out to find the perfect location to build what he had planned to be a castle barn. Just a small structure that was castle-like. Yes, that was the original plan. They settled on a plot of land in the rolling hills near Loudonville, Ohio. The property overlooked forests, valleys, and farmland stretching toward the Mohican State Park. Standing on the ridge, it's easy to understand why Jim chose this location. The elevation provides sweeping views in nearly every direction. Morning fog settles into the valleys below. Sunset lights the surrounding hills in brilliant shades of gold and orange. Even before construction began, the property had a timeless quality. Jim reportedly wanted visitors to feel as though they had stepped into another century. The landscape itself helped make that vision believable. As I said a moment ago, Jim set out to build his castle barn. He hadn't planned on building what would become a luxury resort, but as we discussed in a few other episodes, building without a blueprint can spiral and grow and continue growing. It kept growing until Landoll ended up with a full-scale, European-inspired castle, complete with guest suites, towers, courtyards, stone walls, and fine dining. Like many ambitious projects, the final result was much larger than anyone had originally intended. I said he built without a blueprint. Rather than following a rigid master plan, Jim directed the project personally, adjusting designs as construction progressed. Builders have described it as creating a castle almost organically. One tower would inspire another. Then a hallway would be extended, and that forced a staircase to be redesigned. Rooms evolved as ideas emerged. That approach is in common in most modern construction, but contribute to the castle's authentic, irregular appearance. Unlike many hotels built with identical layouts and perfectly symmetrical corridors, Landoll's feels more like a genuine medieval castle. No two areas feel exactly alike. Guests frequently comment that the building encourages exploration around nearly every corner, and around nearly every corner is another unexpected room, corridor, turret, or architectural detail to be discovered. Jim not only wanted the castle to feel organic in layout, but he wanted it to feel connected to the land itself. Much of the hardwood harvested during clearing of the property was milled and incorporated into the castle. Those trees became flooring, trim, doors, cabinetry, and decorative woodwork. Stone found throughout the property was also incorporated into portions of the exterior construction. Rather than importing every material, the builders intentionally used resources already present on the land whenever practical. The result is a castle that appears rooted in its surroundings rather than simply placed upon them. The castle is filled with hidden details. Throughout the property, you'll find medieval-inspired furnishings, stained glass, carved woodwork, antique-style lighting, armor displays, tapestries, and decorative stonework. Some rooms feature spiral staircases, others include fireplaces or private balconies overlooking the countryside. There are towers designed purely for aesthetics and hidden architectural surprises that make exploring the castle part of the experience. Even if someone has no interest in ghosts, the building itself is worth visiting simply because of the craftsmanship and atmosphere. You could probably stay there a dozen times and find something new every time. The castle may be a destination for paranormal investigators, but that is not the original intent. Jim envisioned a place where people could celebrate milestone. Today's the castle hosts weddings, anniversaries, family gatherings, corporate retreats, and romantic getaways. Its restaurant, the Copper Mug Bar and Grill, attracts visitors from across the region, and the grounds offer scenic trails and seasonal events. Many guests arrive with no intention of hunting ghosts at all. Some simply want to experience the atmosphere of staying in a castle without traveling overseas. Ironically, quite a few of those guests leave with stories they never expected to tell, and that's where we like to focus the paranormal lens. Once the castle was built, guests began to arrive, and a surprising area began to draw more attention than expected. It wasn't one of the bedchambers or the great room. It was that little pioneer cemetery that I talked about earlier, Hyde Cemetery. This has become the heart of the castle's paranormal reputation. This peaceful, modest cemetery that has weathered 150 years of Ohio's summers and winters does something to people as they pass through the gates to gaze at the simple burial ground. It's like many of the family plots here in Lancaster County. If you weren't looking for it, you might pass right by it. Whether it's psychological, atmosphere, or something paranormal, people swear they feel something once they are inside the fence. Of course, there is a story that goes with the cemetery to help bring the eerie feeling. It is the legend of the missing graves. According to local folklore, some graves disappeared over the years. Depending on who tells the story, the explanation varies dramatically. Some claim the graves were relocated. Others suggest markers deteriorated or became lost under vegetation. Still others insist graves remain hidden somewhere on the property. Here's where historical research becomes important. At this time, no published documentation confirms that large numbers of graves were secretly removed or relocated. Like many stories associated with haunted places, the legend has grown through repeated retelling. That doesn't necessarily make it false, but it does remind us to distinguish between documented history and oral tradition. For paranormal investigators, legends can be valuable. They shape expectations, they influence witness testimony, and sometimes they become part of the haunting itself. As Landoll's Mohican Castle became more popular, reports of unusual experiences around the cemetery began to increase. The most common reported experiences include hearing whispers when no one else is nearby, footsteps on fallen leaves, the sensation of someone standing behind you, sudden drops in temperature, feelings of unease, apparitions seen between the headstones, strange lights moving through the trees. The most common experience is the overwhelming feeling that visitors are not alone. Like we've said before, none of these experiences prove paranormal activity. They are personal accounts. But when similar reports continue over many years from people who don't know one another, investigators naturally become interested. Let's go into a little more detail about one of the apparitions. A little girl wearing a blue dress is reported more than any other. Descriptions vary, but several witnesses have reported seeing what appears to be a young child standing quietly near the cemetery. Some say she disappears the moment they look away. Others claim she slowly fades from sight. A few have reported hearing what sounds like a child laughing. Others have described faint crying carried on by the wind. I will point out that no documented historical record has identified a child buried in the cemetery who clearly matches these descriptions. Another common reported phenomenon involves the shadow figures. Unlike traditional ghost sightings, witnesses often describe these figures as completely dark, simple, human-shaped silhouettes standing silently among the trees or near the cemetery entrance. Several visitors report seeing the figures out of the corner of their eye. They will turn to look at it directly, and it's gone. Hyde Cemetery has also become a popular location for EVP sessions. Over the years, visitors have claimed to record whispers, names, short responses, and sounds that were not heard during the actual investigation. Now, we already have quite a few stories, and we are still outside the castle walls. This raises one of the biggest questions surrounding Landolls. Is the cemetery responsible for the reports inside the building? Some paranormal theories suggest that the spirits are connected to the land rather than the building. If that's true, then constructing the castle nearby may have simply placed people closer to existing paranormal activity. Others argue the castle itself created an atmosphere that encourages ghost stories. Its medieval appearance, stone architecture, and dramatic setting naturally inspire visitors to think about history, mystery, and hauntings. It's entirely possible that both history and psychology contribute to what people experience. As investigators, it's important to remain open-minded while also demanding evidence. As we enter the castle, the question comes to mind, how does a 24-year-old structure become so haunted? As paranormal investigators, we collectively have several theories. The first is that the activity isn't connected to the building itself. Instead, it may be connected to the land. The second is that intense emotion, love, grief, and trauma, or tragedy, can somehow leave an imprint on a location. And it doesn't take long for that to happen in a place like this. The third is that some experiences may have natural explanations that are interpreted as paranormal because of the environment. A dark hallway in a castle at midnight feels very different from that same hallway during the afternoon. So what do people experience inside the walls? One of the most common reports at Landoll's involves footsteps. Guests and employees have described hearing footsteps moving through hallways when no one should be there. Some reports describe footsteps approaching a room and stopping directly outside the door. Others describe walking sounds above them, even when the area is empty. From a paranormal perspective, footsteps are often interpreted as spirits moving through a location. However, there are also many other natural possibilities. Older buildings frequently transmit sounds in unexpected ways. A guest walking in another hallway, a door closing, the building settling, sound traveling through wooden floors. The challenge for investigators is to determine when a sound is simply a sound and when it becomes something more difficult to explain. Now, another category in the castle involves doors opening, closing, or behaving unexpectedly. Guests have reported returning to their rooms and finding doors that appear to have moved. Others claim they have heard doors opening while alone. This type of report is common in paranormal investigations. However, investigators must consider practical explanations first. These castle-style doors are very heavy, so they're not going to move in a little bit of wind. Temperature changes can affect the hinges and things like that. So again, they're probably not going to move easily. A building full of guests also creates countless opportunities for ordinary explanations. Still, for those who experience it firsthand, especially while alone at night, the moment can feel unsettling. Another recurring claim involves voices. Some guests report hearing conversation when no one is nearby. Others describe hearing their name called. Some claim to hear children laughing or whispering. No discussion of Landoll's haunting would be complete without talking about the Macbeth cabin. Often referred to as one of the most active locations on the property, Cottage 13, or the Macbeth cabin, has developed a reputation among paranormal enthusiasts as a place to stay if you want a possible encounter. The cottage was originally built in 1890, though it was renovated in 2023. It is believed to be haunted by the Hyde family and said to be the most haunted place on the property. It is secluded away from the main castle. Unlike a traditional hotel room, it offers visitors privacy and isolation. And isolation can dramatically change how we experience a location. A strange noise in a crowded hotel may be ignored, but the same noise while alone in a secluded cottage can feel completely different. Guests staying in Cottage 13 have reported footsteps, knocking sounds, voices, again the feeling of being watched, and the unexplained movement of objects. Some visitors have claimed to see apparitions inside the cottage. One recurring story involves the possible spirit of a former occupant appearing to guests. However, these stories remain based on visitor accounts rather than documented proof. Now, the other thing is there's an interesting psychological element to Cottage 13. The number itself carries cultural associations. Many buildings avoid the number 13 because of superstition. Some guests arrive already expecting something unusual. This doesn't mean the experiences are fake. It means expectations can influence perception. Landoll's Mohican, Landoll's Mohican Castle received national attention when it appeared on the television program Ghost Hunters. The appearance introduced the location to a much larger paranormal audience. The investigation focused on several areas of the property, including locations with existing reports of unusual activity. I could dig into the details of the investigation, but I'll let you do that on your own. Now, because of its reputation, Landoll's continues to attract paranormal investigators. Private groups visit hoping to document evidence. Some guests conduct their own experiments, some use traditional equipment, and others simply spend the night and observe. The goal is always the same: capture something that cannot easily be explained. Whether investigators find evidence depends greatly on interpretation. One person's explanation of an event may be another person's natural phenomenon. We can't talk about the modern Landoll's castle without discussing its current paranormal attractions. The castle offers haunted history tours and ghost walks that explore the legend connected with the property. These experiences combine local history, pioneer stories, castle legends, and reported encounters. I like this approach because a good haunted tour simply isn't about saying the place is haunted. It's about telling the stories of people connected to the location. The real history gives the legend meaning. Without the history, a ghost story is just a story. The summer ghost walk and history tours start at $27. Paranormal investigations are available at the castle. They include a tour of the active areas, exclusive access to the grounds. You can set up equipment in the authentic reproduction of Jacob Hyde's historic log cabin. If it isn't in use, you can have access to the pool house. You get access to the tunnel under the castle, the 200-year-old one-room log cabin, and access to the private 230-year-old graveyard, Hyde Cemetery. That's all included in the current price of $300 for 4 people. Each additional person is $75, and that gets you a minimum of a 10-hour investigation. The Macbeth Cottage is also available to investigate, but that's an additional fee. So after everything we've talked about tonight, is Landoll's Mohican Castle haunted? I think the answer depends on what you believe. If you require scientific proof, I don't think this adds up to it. We remain inconclusive. But just like most places, there is no universally accepted evidence proving the spirits inhabit the property. But if you believe in personal experiences, eyewitness accounts, and unexplained moments that have value, then Landoll certainly has a story worth exploring. Maybe the answer is somewhere between belief and skepticism. Maybe places like this are important not because they prove ghosts exist, but they make us ask questions. So as I wrap up, I'm going to give you some sources. The first one was landollsmohicancastle.com, treasure trove of information there. www.ohiohistory.org, www.nps.gov/subjects/Native American Heritage. That's the National Park Service. Mohican.com, touringohio.com/northeast/Ashland/Landoll's Mohican Castle.html, and ohio.org. So those are my sources. I found with this place, there's a lot of things that are talked about, but there's not a lot of specific stories of, like, it's, a lot of people have talked about it. But there aren't a lot of specific details. So that was a little disappointing. But with that, I'll open it up. What do you guys think?
Well, before we go there, let me catch up with some comments. First of all, Paula has joined us and says, "Good evening, friends." Good evening, Paula. Welcome. And Bert came the closest to road trip with, "So when are we going?" And Heather has said, "Love the history tours," and I can't argue with that. I agree,
Right.
100%. I one thing that strikes me, and I think this is something we did pretty well when we were the host group for Boobies Brewery, and even before that, even at the Haldeman Mansion, is that as we held events, we were asking guests to give us their stories, and we were kind of capturing that, which helped build the case for what
Right.
was happening. And it's still anecdotal. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but because there's still not the scientific data element of it. But if you start to coalesce the stories together, you start to find the patterns, and then you see the continuities, and you have the better picture of what's going on
Mm-hmm.
over time. Especially, one-offs are difficult. That's us. We go out to the field. We're going to a place for the night because we're not from there. We're traveling to it. That's the road trip part. And we're buying our ticket as you would have to here, and we're experiencing whatever we can in advance by either doing our own research or taking the tour perhaps the day of, and then we're doing the thing, and then we're on the road back, and trying to capture all of it into something. That's why we carry audio. That's why we carry video, equipment, things like that. We're trying to get that thing to happen, but it doesn't always happen while we're there. It's not on demand.
Right.
So, but capturing it at the site, the ownership, if you will, of that place, I always, I hope they're doing something there where they're doing this, and then they can give more detail then. And that's maybe where these pieces that you provided come from, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But or is it from the internet? People coming afterwards, reviewing it, putting it out to the world on their own, which is just the same, I guess, as long as it can be coalesced. But I think it falls on the place really, if they want to present it this way, to do that documentation and make that effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, there just didn't seem to be a lot there out there of specifics. So,
It's interesting.
yep.
Well, one thing I thought of, and going back a little over a year ago, we were at Wilson Castle, and where it's located, right outside of the town, it's on a hillside, kind of in the valley,
Mm-hmm.
and it's there's a portico, this nice grand porch on the side of the property on the hillside. Everything that's on that side has these big windows, to view the valley, and you can see left and right, up and down the valley. Then what's if anyone was coming or not, but you
Mm-hmm.
have a spectacular view, and it is an easterly view, so we had a really cool view of the sunset hitting the far mountain as the sun was going down. So places that are in locations like this, where the castle is here for Landolls, is the intentionality of placing it there is so critical to the rest of it, and I can understand the aura there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a guest in Emmy Thomas 6844. It says it's interesting that the most haunted spot on the property is named Macbeth. True. I was wondering where that might come in,
Yep.
or so we'll call it the Scottish play. So,
Just a cursed name.
Yep. Now, and I couldn't find why it
thanks,
was
Em.
called the Macbeth cabin. Maybe if it was because of that, or if it was because of something else. So,
It is interesting.
so it's a 6.5, 7 hour drive. So
So road trip is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
that's an easy one. Yeah.
yeah. It really
Uh,
isn't that bad. And depending which way you go, you're likely going to pass by Moundsville, West Virginia. You're definitely going through Wheeling, so just a short drive down the river, and we're back there again. So
Yep. That is. I'm looking at the map. That's one of the routes right through Wheeling, or you
yeah.
can go up through Pittsburgh up to Akron.
And the place that's right over the river in Ohio, the house, it's a house. Oh my gosh, we were there. Well, some of the team went there. We were at West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
It's an all night event there too. So there's a couple things we could do.
Mm-hmm. Can make a long weekend of it, is what you're saying.
Yes, easily.
Yep.
Well, the cemetery. Let's circle back there. So,
Yeah.
you know, it goes back to what I was saying earlier on, like how there are generations, where there's no place for folks to go. So, like small cemeteries pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always interesting because, I couldn't tell from the slides whether the tombstones were visible or not, as far as the etching of or the carving.
They
Um,
vary. Yeah.
right. So there could be more than what's visible there, based on age and time, and 230 years is a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of those older stones may not even be there anymore, or at least not visible to really see the depth of who's interred there.
Right.
And people are passionate about their places, and we say this every week, I guess now, but passion is, there's passion,
Right.
there's energy, and there's energy, there's activity. I guess I can see how that ties together.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, the claims of whispers, footsteps in the leaves, that could be an animal.
Right.
Right? If you spend any time in the woods, you'll hear things coming and going. The temperature changes, though, that's unique. Apparitions, lights, that's unique.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling of being watched, which generally we associate it to a lot of times with EMF because of the indoor properties that we're at and the old wiring and things. But when you're out in the woods, there shouldn't be anything.
Nope.
At least not a natural element to it. So that's, to me, is one of the more interesting things. And of
Now,
course, bringing in specific entities, like a little girl in a blue dress, that's very specific,
right.
right? It's not like a lady in white or someone in black, and shadow figures too. I mean, as it goes, that that could be a trick of light. Of course, it could be going to the feeling of being watched. You associate something is there, but if it's been said over and over and over again, and they're getting EVPs out there, again,
Right.
it shouldn't be anything.
Right. Bert's comment here sort of tied in with what you were saying. To me, it seems like the land is giving off the energy more than the castle itself, especially the cemetery. Now, I'm not one of the believers that typical cemeteries are haunted.
Right.
Like if you go to if you go to the Lancaster Cemetery, I don't feel like that's going to be haunted because there's nothing tying the people to that. That was just their final
Right.
resting place.
Yeah.
These family plot cemeteries, I think you sort of hit on it a little bit, Jamie. They are tied to those because that they put their heart and soul into that land.
It's their place.
It's their place, and I think those small. It's just like the Hansgraf Cemetery here, and that we did the tour, the episode on.
We investigated, yeah.
That probably does have a lot of energy because it is a small family plot. Not really small, it's a decent size, but it's a family plot, and everybody who's there had something to do with that area. So,
Yep. If I'm not mistaken, we had a K2 on the wall that activated with no reason. We're 100 yards or more, or 200 yards probably from a home. There's no overhead wiring. We weren't close enough to it for our own stuff to activate, like a phone or something.
right.
So that was one of the more interesting pieces, other than the lure of going around the cemetery wall so many times under the light of a full moon. How silly were we to do that, dude? We could have been gotten by the white werewolf.
But we didn't. We're good. So
Yeah, I'm not going back. That's for sure. But yeah, that's the thing, right? This was somebody's place, and it was dear to them, and I think what you said early in the presentation too, like the littlest of things could be catastrophic. A cut could become infected.
right.
An illness could get out of hand. There weren't direct medical care facilities. People were days away, and even then, they may not come with what you need to deal with the thing you have.
Right.
So people passed, and they may not have passed pleasantly. It wasn't in their sleep. There could be trauma.
Right.
So I can certainly understand this in these rural cemeteries and these rural family plots, how there could be certain activity. Because, honestly, you said it well. If somebody dies today and, they get interred somewhere, they're not going to go there and haunt it. They're going to go where they love, the
Right.
place that has their passion.
Mhm.
And that may be their home, that may be their favorite place, whatever it is, but it's certainly not going to be where their bones are.
Right.
You don't see that.
So, the picture I have up here, this is the Macbeth cottage. So it's
I'd
just
stay there.
I
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And it has a hot tub too, so like
I definitely would stay there.
that was the 2023 renovation, not the 1890s. So,
I
yeah,
like the I like the little I like the aesthetic.
yeah. It sleeps four people. You don't have a whole lot of but you're away. You're like that. That seems perfect to me. So
Listen, if I start seeing a dagger and its handles towards my hand, I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
yeah.
Time to go.
So
Time to leave.
up. We're doing it again, Jamie. There you go.
Yeah.
So
Guys are-
Heather said we've talked about cemeteries before. She almost feels peaceful in them. So
Yep.
again, and I think that's what you're going to find in a family cemetery. It's if it's haunted, it's going to be a happy haunting, not a tragic like what people think of as a cemetery. And then Bert said, absolutely, family cemeteries are different. My family has a cemetery in Durlick, Upper Lancaster County. The feeling is completely different than, and I'm assuming than a church cemetery or public cemetery.
Right.
So yeah, seems like an interesting place to me. I'd definitely go visit.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the haunting comes from the cemetery. I mean, with the castle being so close, it probably kind of disturbed whatever spirits were there, and they went, this is our new home."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a question for you though, and what I didn't, maybe I missed this. I don't think so, but whatever became of Jim Landoll?
I believe he's still. They actually, the Landoll family reacquired the publishing company. I believe,
Okay.
but I think they're still running the hotel. Like
Okay.
so, they're still around.
I think of him, with the passion that it took to create this. He and
Hmm.
his wife, her name is Martha, I believe.
Marta.
Uh, their passion to, first of all, do this and then continuing to expand and just grow the property. Maybe some of what their people are experiencing there are them, if they've left us. And that's why I'm trying to understand whether they're still
Mhm.
with us or not. But
Yeah,
um,
I
you know
believe
that
they are.
Um,
that kind of thing makes sense too, and plus it's native land, so we have this the property. The property is theirs now, but it goes back, from the 70s when they acquired it. Let's go back to the 1600s, 1500s, 1400s. This was Native American land, so
Right.
there certainly could well be a tie there because someone else loved the place as much. And it just now happens to be this big ass castle on top of it. But you know, we can go. We are deeper in history than what our documents show,
Right.
and that's something I think we always forget about when it comes to like an obvious thing of why something's active.
Hmm.
so I found Jimmy Landoll on LinkedIn, and it has him as the CEO of Landoll's Mohican Castle. So they're definitely still doing stuff.
Yep.
All right, well, you should probably connect with him, get an in.
Get us an in? Sure.
Yeah. This is really interesting, and thanks, Chad. I've heard of this. I recall the Ghost Hunters episode.
Hmm.
Um, I forgot the name of it, but overall, I remember the episode, and it was interesting then. It's certainly interesting now, and it's great to see it still there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And a lot of things changed post COVID or pre COVID to post COVID with access to places, and um,
Right.
things that are public. So a lot of things shuttered and have not come back, and it's great to see this survived all of that, and then apparently it's thriving. So, and it's
Yep.
accessible. They're familiar and accessible to the paranormal folks, which is great.
Yep. Yep. So, I mean, and it's $75 a person. It's not out of the ballpark.
Not considering some of the rates I saw for another location
Mhm.
closer to home, way closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming up in a couple weeks, so
Yeah.
it's like half. So yeah, it's really cool,
So cool.
and it's really not that far.
No, not at all.
From Loveland, Florida, Loveland, Ohio. So that's another one we can make us pop in there on the road up
You go to
over
the
in,
castle, find the frogman.
All
We're
sorts
set.
of yeah.
yeah. Ohio is a creepy place.
Not
And
I'm
also
not
cool.
gonna touch that one. No, no. So
Creepy cool.
so all right, you ready to move on and talk about what's coming up?
Sure.
I guess.
All right.
All right. Well, next week I'm going to cover the alien abduction of Barney and Betty Hill. This happened back in the late 50s. One of the very first nationally known abduction stories, and one of therefore many after. So a lot of the things we'll hear and see in this one will sound familiar simply because it's been done before since. And I'll leave it to you to determine the rest of that. But next week. And then after that, we have coming up on July 28th, the Ganjam Psychiatric Hospital, and that's Kirstin. August 4th, Where Mirrors Remember, The Haunting of Myrtle's Plantation. That's pretty cool. August 11th, I'm back with Koiba Island Penal Colony. August 18th, The Devil Made Me Do It, The Arnie Johnson Trial. That is Kirstin. Chad has on the 25th, The Soul Remembers, Past Life Regression. And then I'm going to do on September 1st, I'm going to do my summer vacation book report on the Bennington Triangle. I've had some actual time in the triangle that I'm going to share my experiences with you guys on, and some of the lore and history of the area. And that is southwestern Vermont, Bennington itself. So
Cool.
lots coming up, lots of fun, lots of spooky stuff. And us, if you're interested in checking in with us as a team, we are Jott-Nyx Paranormal, and that's www.jott- or hyphen, either way, nyxparanormal.com. So jott-nyxparanormal.com. If you'd like to send us something to share with an episode in the future, something you'd like us to cover, or give us a heads up on how we're doing, feel free to email us at info@paranormal-lens.com. And all of our socials and stuff, including our team store, is available on Linktree, which is linktr.ee/paranormal lens. And if you'd like to support the program, there is a cost to running all of this fun stuff every week. You can help us out by joining buymeacoffee.com/paranormal9, and or scan the QR code currently on the screen. That'll help us out. We really, really appreciate it. Any amounts, large or small, is appreciated. And that's it.
Yeah. I do want to. I don't think I told you guys. I'm doing the past life regression episode in a couple of weeks, middle of August. But this weekend on Saturday is when I'm going to go visit my friend and do the past life regression. So
Can't wait to hear about it.
going to be
Yeah,
an
it's gonna be
interesting
great.
day. So yeah.
Very cool.
So,
And if you're not hanging out with Chad doing this on Saturday and you're down in the Southern Virginia area, the Hanover Tavern is having a public investigation and tickets are still available.
Yeah.
And 3 locations, the tavern, actually 4 locations, sorry, the tavern, the library across the street, the courthouse, and the jail. So great spot. Fantastic opportunity to support the tavern. It just had a birthday with the country's anniversary. So our good friend Steve Dills will be there leading the way.
If it wasn't on the same weekend as my daughter's birthday, I would be there.
Yeah, that's fair. Choices, right? Tough one too.
Choices.
But you probably
What
made
is
the
their
right one.
first birthday?
Yeah. After this one, you can do it. Yeah,
Maybe the second birthday.
yeah. Don't skip this one. So
this one's a good one.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, next thing you know, she's driving. So
Stop it. I don't like it.
and any friends of ours in the South Central PA area recognize that 2 weeks from now we're going to be heading to the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash out in Gettysburg, PA. So if you're available there, that's a fantastic weekend as well. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. Lots of great vendors, lots and lots of paranormal peoples, lectures, engagement stuff. We were not there officially as a team, but I'm sure we'll be seen on site eventually that weekend. So
yeah, at some point, I haven't figured out when.
I know, right? We got too
We
much
might
other
want to
stuff going on.
discuss this.
Maybe off camera. Maybe off camera.
So,
Yeah.
so, well, on that note, sorry, still fighting a cold from 3 weeks ago. Let me wrap it up, and we'll move on. Behind every legend is a story, and behind every story is a piece of history waiting to be discovered. Landoll's Mohican Castle is more than just a haunted location. It's a dream brought to life, a connection to the past, and a place where visitors continue to create new memories. Thank you for exploring this mystery with us. We will see you on our next investigation. Stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious. Good night, everybody.